Welcome to Spacious Creative. I am Cindy Ingram.
And I am Heather Doyle Fraser. And in this podcast, we're exploring the process and practice of creativity, but with the foundation in compassion.
In this limited series, we'll dive into how creative expression shows up in our lives, from childhood inspirations to the challenges of perfectionism and everything in between.
Whether you're reconnecting with your inner child or reimagining your creative identity and how you can harness more creativity in your life, Spacious Creative is here to inspire and support your journey. Cindy, I don't know about you, but constantly I have conversations with my clients and also with myself sometimes about the importance of staying in process versus veering off into this land of productivity, efficiency, task manager, getting all the things done, or being so consumed with what, like, if I'm going to write a book, then I need to write, 1,000 words a day, or I need to write 2,000 words a day, or I need to put in 4 hours a day, or whatever that is. So I think that would be a good thing to talk about. I'm sure you have those discussions as well.
Yes, it comes up a lot, especially, just when I first started writing my book, that was definitely the thing that I thought of a lot as, okay, how many, I would keep track of my stats of how many words I would write each day. And then there came a time when it would be like, I removed 2,000 words in a day or more. One day it was half of the whole thing.
I removed half my book. Oh
no. One day it was 25,000 words I removed. But yeah, that does come up a lot. And I think the idea, and also the productivity piece, stops people because they don't feel like creating is being productive. So there's kind of two paths we can go. But I think the staying in process piece is great, because you have like a different definition of process that taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there's a lot more to the creative process, whether you're writing, doing any kind of art or whatever. I think there's a lot more to creative process than just, sitting down at your laptop and typing and writing, or sitting down at whatever page you're at, or, something. It's more than just that time you're spending with your fingers on the keys or, whatever. There's a lot that goes into that we don't realize or give credit to. And for instance, with writing, I talk a lot about, people tell me I'm such a procrastinator. I can't get myself to write. Okay, well then what are you doing? Well, I read a lot, and I take these walks, and I think about like what I'm going to be rewriting, and then sometimes after I've done that, I've procrastinated for 2 weeks, and then I sit down and I can knock it off really quick. But did that just come to you really quick? No. For those 2 weeks, you were doing things in process for that moment when you sat down to write. And so I call that a lot of like pre-writing. So like there's a lot involved in pre-writing that people don't give credit to. And I know, and once you realize, okay, what is my process? My process may not look like everybody else's process. For me in particular, I know that my process, when I'm working on a specific piece of writing, I need to give myself space for that idea to kind of marinate and develop. If I don't give myself that space, if I come up with an idea and then try to write it that day, it does not end well for me.
Yeah.
I haven't given myself the opportunity to really explore that idea. And so when I come up with, I have like a running list of ideas that I'm writing about. And, I might jot down ideas like bullets or something like that for those things. And then when I go for a walk, I might take a look at that list. I'm like, I want to think about that idea a little bit. And that helps me when I come to write. Or I might specifically read something to help me kind of parse out a little bit more what the things that I'm, and sometimes those things don't even make it in, but they're like part of the background or the texture of what I'm writing. But I think that when you find out what your process is, or you notice like, oh, this is what I always do, is that really procrastination? I don't think so. I think it's
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. And it makes me think of, I think we talked about it last time, or we touched on it at least, of how a lot of people, and was definitely me before I really started committing to the process, think they just kind of wait until the moment is right, or a moment of inspiration or a moment of genius, and then that's when everything flows, and then they just kind of wait. But this is different from that, because in this case that you're talking about, you are still your subconscious and your conscious brain are aware of that you are writing, and that you're there, that you are actively working on something, and not just waiting for inspiration to strike. And so when you are in that process, like, I remember in writing my book, whatever chapter I was on, that consumed a lot of my thoughts throughout the day. It made me aware of like different connections. Like, there was one chapter I was writing about shame, and suddenly shame was everywhere. Like, I saw everyone's shame. I saw my own shame. I found, like, just was being advertised courses on shame on the internet. Like, it was just, shame was everywhere. And I was reading a book and I was like, oh my gosh, this whole character is just overwhelmed with shame. Like, it was just shame everywhere. And so it was just, my brain was like working out, what is shame? What is, how did my shame arrive? Is it shame? It was just kind of like this constant thing that my brain was like churning on. And then it allowed me to like see everything through a different lens, which then allowed my book, allowed that chapter to come to fruition. But I tried writing that chapter so many times and kind of like forcing it. And, I couldn't force it. I had to arrive that way.
And also because you hadn't really given yourself the opportunity to explore that topic like fully. Like you
Right.
just like you knew that that was the topic that you wanted to write about, but let's be real. No one is like wants to like super explore that topic if they don't have to. So, but then when you committed to that chapter and like committed to process of like, okay, I'm not just gonna like I don't have all the answers here. I need to do a little bit of like being with this idea. So what happens when you let yourself be with an idea for a little bit? Like
Yeah. And
what
now that I'm thinking about it, didn't even start as shame. It started as social anxiety. It was the
right.
social anxiety chapter. And I kept
Because you
trying to
found
write it,
what was underneath the
what was
social
underneath.
anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just like digging deeper and deeper until I found like the right thing. And all of that happened in conversation, and happened in just my general life. It didn't happen with me sitting in front of the computer typing words.
But it resulted in you sitting in front of the type.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what the process led you to that outcome, but the outcome didn't lead you, like you had to like let go of the outcome to be in the process.
Yes.
It's really interesting to me that you brought up that shame piece too, because I think that being in process allows you to let go of the shame that you
Yes.
have when you're like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? This gives you this compassion, like, oh, of course I can't do this right now. There's no shame in this. It's because I haven't given myself enough time and space around this idea. I need to nurture this idea. I need to make friends with this idea. I need to like trust this idea. I need to do all of the things that you do to build a relationship with something with the idea. It's just
Yeah. Oh, good connection. Yeah. I love that. I had a question and then it just like left me that was related to that. I think I was just momentarily kept enraptured by your brilliance and making that connection. Then I just lost. I lost the question I was going to ask. I keep thinking about it, how it relates to art, because with writing, it was just so prevalent, that idea. It was almost like I was writing all the time. in that
That is,
way.
yes, that is what's
Yeah.
happening. You're working on your piece, whatever it is. You end up working on it all the time, even when you're not working on it. Like because it's just there with you. And when you are exploring something, like you just said, you notice all the moments every day that you otherwise would like skip over. But when that's brought to your attention, you're like, oh, I'm seeing this everywhere. It's not like it just showed up now. It's just because you're paying attention to that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a painting in process that I am stuck on, and I am finding myself judging myself for my stuckness on it. Like, but I am every now and then just sitting and staring at it. I've got a picture of it on my phone. Every now and then I'll just open it up, and so I am like, it is something that's in the back of my head. So I just realized I'm doing that, actively doing that now, judging myself for being stuck on that painting.
And you're also actively nurturing it too. Like
Yeah.
you're doing that right now.
Yeah. Good reframe for my current life in this moment. Oh, I feel like I'll never figure it out, but I will just have to just keep.
Isn't that interesting though? Like I've had those moments so much too, where like I'm working on something and I have, all these different ideas, and I think like I got to put all these ideas in this piece, and then I realize like, okay, no, I don't. Like sometimes you need to like strip things away. Sometimes you need to add things to it. But like the only way you figure that out is to be in it, to be with it. And every everything is different. And sometimes you're like, this is going to take me forever. And then you have enough time with it that all of a sudden there's a moment of like clarity on, I don't need all of that. For this particular piece, my main message is this. So this is what I'm trying to convey. I just need like what I have and a little bit more. I don't need to go on for, like have 12 other examples. I just need this one that is really actually kind of perfect for this, and just build that one very well, and it will be what I need it to be. Yeah.
You're coaching me and you don't even know it, because I'm just it's like, oh, in this painting, I think I am. I'm trying to put too much into it. And if I just focus on the just one part of it, maybe that's the answer. Oh,
It was about that main message. Like what am I trying to convey? That one thing that I want people to, like that I want to convey with this piece, whatever it is.
yeah.
And it doesn't mean
Okay.
those other things aren't great. It just means that they don't belong on that page or that piece or that whatever.
Yeah. So what I'm curious about, and I know you worked with so many people on this, is what is the difference between, this idea of this process, and you're always working on it, and you're when you're taking your walks and you're thinking about it, what is the difference between that and waiting for those click moments, and waiting for inspiration? Like, is there something that distinguishes the two?
I think the word waiting is the thing.
Ah,
So like when you're like anticipate, it's gonna come, it's gonna come, it's gonna come. I'm waiting, it's gonna come. That sounded terrible. And what I'm that kind of I'm torturing myself over when am I going to feel inspired
yeah.
instead of, or what, like this feels very counterintuitive, but if you're with something all the time, if you're nurturing that all the time, eventually things do click into place. If you
Mhm.
spend enough time with it, they just will click into a place. And it doesn't always initially feel like inspiration. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that until you're done with it and you're like, oh, look what I created. This is awesome. I wrote that. Wow. That when I was writing that little by little, or when I was doing that little by little, each of those moments never really felt like inspiration to me, but I was putting in the time. And at the end, when I look at the end product, That feels really inspired. And I may have not had any like big aha exciting moments with that. I may have had a lot of mediocre, that's okay. That's pretty good. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. And then maybe a little some other pieces where things did come together and you said, "Oh, I know how to write this sentence," or, "Oh, I know how to put this on the paper," or, I know how to do this." But it's just for that little piece. But then when you look at all together at the end, it feels inspired, but it only felt that way because you put the time in when you didn't actually feel inspired to just keep on building that relationship with it.
Yeah. So it's showing up for the work, whether or not you feel that inspiration.
Yeah, and I think that's what I mean when you spend time doing any creative process, any creative piece, and like we've talked about before, sometimes you need to do something else creative to get back to feeling that way about whatever the main thing is you're doing. But when you just spend time with it, you crave time with it. So like
Yes.
even if it's not, it doesn't feel like the ideal, you still crave that time with it. And that feels good to spend time with it, even if every moment doesn't feel good. Like overall, it feels good. It's
Yeah.
totally like in a relationship with any other person, even, like not every moment with every person that you have a relationship with is good. It doesn't feel good all the time, but overall, that relationship is a good relationship.
Yeah. And I think when before I wrote my book and before I started making art again, I always spent most of my time and energy trying, starting and finishing things. If I wrote something, I would hit publish right away if it was a post or a blog post or whatever it was. It was never did I really fully allow myself to like swim is the word that's coming to me, swim in the
Yeah.
process, just like, and I learned so much by surrendering to that process, because when I started working with you, it was like, okay, my book is going to be done on this day. It was like, we are going to publish in February. And then it was like, we started working together. I was like, okay, no, we're going to go with March. And then, it was like, I was like, we're going to finish this thing. But, that daily work on the book, I hit a place that was like, this book will come out when it's ready. It'll be done when it's ready to be done. And I don't need to push it because I was enjoying the process of writing it so much. And like that has translated into all areas of my life. Like I feel like that's one of my biggest life lessons that I've ever had, is just like, oh, just enjoy what you're doing while you're doing it. And then just don't care about what happens in the end. Like you want to create a good product,
Yes. Yeah.
but like,
That's why you're in the process because you
yeah,
care about that, like you care about that. You care about it, but you're not as attached to it as you were like before in terms of
yeah,
the timing of it. Like, and I mean, there's a lot to be said. I mean, like, it's not like we want to draw out this process forever. There's,
right.
like you don't want to do that. But at the same time, once you have found like the core of that book or the core of whatever you're working on, you need to do that justice. So like you need to honor that piece. So like we're working from, you know, making that like enabling that to come forth. And sometimes that takes a little more time than we thought it would. And there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that. And then at a certain point you realize like, okay, this is done. This is, like that's where also that paradox comes in terms that writing paradox. Like you have to be willing to, revise and spend time and really, like immerse yourself into it. And then at another point, you have to be willing to say, okay, that's it. This is it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yes, I could spend another 20 years working on this, but why would I do that? It would be a totally different book again. Like this is the end of this book. Um,
Yeah. It makes me think too, like this whole conversation is both, it's both about the day to day and how you move through the day to day, but it's also how we're talking about the day to day is also like the big picture, because you talked about once you know the core of the book, like that really was like the moment once I saw the vision of what the my book was and I saw what I was creating, it was like I was all in. But it took a couple years of exploration of the idea and thinking, and a lot of that, like it was always in the back of my mind. I'm like, this book, I'm going to write this book, but what is this book, and it took a long time. So like I can think about this process in terms of years, and I can think about this process in terms of weeks. I can think about this process in terms of days. Like it's
well,
interesting.
in particular with your book, and this is true of many people, when they start writing a book, sometimes that book is the book they think people want to read from them versus the book they really want to write. That birth
Yes.
soul,
Yes.
like contract that you have with that book. Like they think that this is the book I'm supposed to write and what everyone wants and expects to see from me versus this is the book I want to write. The
100%.
difference between those two things.
It
And I
reminds me. Oh, go ahead.
like similar in like working on a painting or something else like that too.
Yes. Yeah. Because that painting that I had made for the book, there was a painting that I was like, okay, I'm going to make a grand painting and it's going to be included in the book. But I was trying to create something that was impressive rather than creating what felt good to create and what felt right to create. I was like really forcing something there.
Like an expectation of some kind.
Yeah. This whole conversation too is I keep getting reminded when you and I were together in Michigan, I there was this post by someone on Facebook friends with that I was in one of those bro marketer groups with years ago. And he wrote this big long post. Well, ChatGPT wrote this big long post, I'm sure, about how his first book, it took him 2 years. And then his second book, it took him 1 year. And now he can get his books down and he can churn them out. And he used the word churn in 3 months. And this is how I do it. And I sit, and he had this whole process of like how he can churn out these books in 3 months. And that's not what we're talking about. That's not it just keeps that's like a focus on probably his books are written for that other what you had just said about like what the people want to read rather than what's coming from your heart and soul.
And I mean, I feel like, so let's say someone says, I wrote this book in 3 months or 4 months or whatever. If it is like more of a soul book, first of all, they probably spent a lot of that 3 months. It's not like they were writing like 1 day and 1 hour a day on that book. They're writing
Yeah.
like those. Also, I would say that that's probably their first draft, not the whole, like it's the first draft. It's not like the
Mm-hmm.
whole book, how that happens. And that book, that idea has been with them for a while. They didn't just like come again talking about process. Everybody that
Yeah.
I talk to who, like, so they say they want to write a book. Well, I've been thinking about this book for 5 years. I've been thinking about this book for 8 years. I've been thinking about this book for 15 years. So, but I've never written anything on it. But you have been working on it, whether you realized it or not. So there's always that element too, but I don't think that that's what he's talking
I
about.
don't think so. I don't think so.
So all this talk about process, I mean, that's we want people to know that being with their ideas, being with their creativity is where you need to start, but you also need to feel safe enough to be with it in order to start. That's part of the process too, feeling
Yeah.
safe enough with your creativity. And we're not taught how to feel to like engender or to cultivate internal safeness for ourselves hardly ever. don't
Yeah.
I don't remember being taught that as a child.
No,
So,
definitely not.
and not as a teenager, not as a, like I had to search that out on my own, just like you have had to search that out on your own. And the feeling safe internally is part of the process, but not, you don't have to feel completely like, you don't have to feel like I'm totally chilled out and I'm totally absolutely like I feel so like there's nothing ever wrong in my life and I'm so, that's not what we're talking about. We're just having like like a corner of that, like a holding on to that and feeling that inside yourself so that you can create, because when you're in that threat system you can't.
So you and I have been talking about this idea of creativity and process and adding compassion and safeness into the space of creativity, that and we are so passionate and enthusiastic about it that we have created a course.
Yes.
Yeah, and it is called the Spacious Creative Compassionate Process and Practice. And it starts in September and we're super excited about it.
Mhm. It's 6 weeks and it's going to be a little bit of a lot of what we've talked about in the past together and some new things too, and really marries what you and I both do so well, I think, which is what I love about it. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so we're really going to talk about, every time I seem to find, I want to be more creative, what do I do? It's like, here's like 40 drawing prompts that you can do, and here's, there's always just like, here's some activities that you can do. But we know that creativity and embracing your creativity and trusting your creativity and trusting yourself and feeling safe, like and ridding yourself of, I don't know if you ever rid yourself of perfectionism, but how
Navigate,
allowing, yeah,
navigate. Yeah.
being with your perfectionism and you know like all of those things, like it's way deeper than just, hey, let's just start making art every day or let's just start writing every day. That there's so much more to being creative and embracing your creativity than what you see above the surface, which is, I'm going to doodle 5 minutes a day or whatever. Like, what did it get what did it take to get you to be able to feel safe enough to doodle for that 5 minutes?
Right. Or even to agree that, like, allow yourself to agree, I'll do something every day. Wow. That takes a lot to
It
like,
is.
or even to say, I'll do something 4 days a week. Like, to get agreement with yourself on that, it takes a lot because we have lives that have a lot of things in them, but finding that trust, that relationship with yourself to know that, oh, this is going to help me feel good. This is going to help my creative process. This is going to help actually all the things in my life. I mean, just like you were saying before, creative process, creative activities impact your life in ways you don't anticipate. And I can't say that enough. When people are talking to me about, you know, every single person I've ever worked with on a book, this book changed my life. Like
Yeah.
that's what they say to me, because it's the process of writing that changes your life. It's the
Yes.
process of creating that changes your life. And so we want to make that more accessible to people, because it's pretty daunting to think about like stepping into a creative practice if you haven't done it in a while, or if you've been denying it to yourself, or if you have some like scary memories around that. So, but you also crave it. So that's what we're trying to do, is make it available to people in a way it maybe hasn't been available in the past.
Yeah, so if you resonated with our stories that we told in our first two episodes about how we, both of us had kind of abandoned our creativity for a while, and
Well, held it at a distance.
yeah,
Held it
yeah, I'm like, is it abandoned? I don't know, that feels really
abandoned.
strong.
but like held it like out
yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah. That, and you know that there is something for you in writing or making art, making music, whatever creative endeavor it is. Even being an entrepreneur is a creative endeavor. I mean, there's so many ways creativity can manifest, but if you feel that call, this is the course that will help you gently and compassionately introduce that into your life in a way that feels safe and good and without shame and without judgment, and you'll get the support that you need to make that happen. Yeah. So you can register at thespaciouscreative.com, and it starts in September, 6 weeks, and we're covering you'll get coaching by me and Heather. You'll get a lot of creative learning activities. Heather and I are not ones to lecture in a group program. We're wanting you to engage in creative activities. So it is going to be a super fun class, and hope you can join us. All right, I think that's it for today's episode. We will be back next week to talk more creativity. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Spacious Creative. We hope you found inspiration and insights to give you some momentum on your creative journey.
If you're ready to dive deeper, we invite you to register for our 6-week program, The Spacious Creative, Compassionate Practice and Process, starting in September. Sign up at thespaciouscreative.com. We can't wait to connect with you again on our next episode. Until then, trust your creativity and hold your inspiration and yourself with compassion.